When when it's time to begin, it's on the Rewind Around with John Pollock and Wai Ting. The A-Team that makes sense of these things we see in the ring every week on TV. It's Rewind Around for Monday night. Download it Tuesday morning from the Post Wrestling site. It's Rewind Around for Monday night on USA Now on the John and Wai Take the Mic.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Rewind Raw with John Pollock and Wai Ting. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Yeah, not so bad myself. How about you?
I got so little sleep over the last 24 hours. It was not great.
Yeah, sleep is important, man.
It is important. I got a good 2 hours of sleep since we have last spoken. That was about my I was hoping for more. My daughter had other ideas in mind. So at 5 a.m, that was it for me. So how are you?
Sorry. Yeah, I mean, I was about the same this morning. Today was Oscar's first day at daycare, and so had a very early start myself. But he was as good as you could ask for. Like, didn't cry. He actually, I think, wanted to stay longer. So didn't really stress too much about that.
You've got the calmest baby.
Yeah, I don't know what that says.
I don't know where he gets it from.
But yeah, no. So that was pretty eventful today for us.
Well, congratulations on day number 1.
Yeah, hopefully tomorrow's good too. You know, tomorrow he has to actually stay for a nap, so that'll be a bit more troublesome.
Oh boy, man! If he doesn't want it, I'll trade.
That's sign up. I mean, the waiting list is kind of tough to get into these days.
Yeah, just for a nap, that sounds like a great idea. We should all engage.
You should get a cot, really. You know, yeah.
I don't know why we stop these things. Like as kids, you have like a nap. I don't know why we cut it off.
I think it's a great idea. Just stop work, middle of the day, sleep at your desk.
I'd be fine with that. Well, on that note, we're not going to sleep on this show. We have a bunch of stuff to get into. I want to thank everyone that tuned into our Revolution review on Sunday night. A lot of people checking out that show. If you want to go back in time, you can listen to the show on the YouTube channel or download on your favorite podcast app. We did 2 hours going through what, according to Cage Match, I believe is the 3rd highest ranked AEW show in the company's history. So
second highest pay-per-view.
Second highest pay-per-view, yes. The Brody Lee tribute show is number 1. I don't think that one's going to get unseated, but yeah, it was a phenomenal show, fantastic card, and we had a lot of calls of people not just reacting to the show, but also that attended the card in person at the Greensboro Coliseum. Not the least of which our own Davey Portman and Braden Harrington, who I trust are back home safe by now.
I mean, I would hope so. If not, I'm sure they're having a great. I'm sure there's a great.
Or we won't.
I'm sure there's a great podcast attached to it either way.
All right, so you can go check out all of that. And coming up this week, we have got multiple shows up at postwrestlingcafe.com. It's a brand new month. Great time to jump on board. And what better event to usher in the month of March than Kazuchika Okada, Kenny Omega from June of 2018, the peak of their rivalry, legendary match. If we're talking about the match of the decade between Will Ospreay and Konosuke Takeshita, this might have been the match of the last decade.
Is it not Dave Meltzer's highest rated match of all time?
I think so. I think this one hit like 7 or something.
Right. Yeah. So according to David, it's the greatest match of all time.
Okay. So that's what we're reviewing on Thursday on Rewind Away. We're going to be reviewing the top 5 matches on the show. This is a long card, and there's more than enough just on the main event alone. But we'll be talking about the top 5 matches and running through a super packed news week that was going on in June of 2018. So look forward to that and speaking with Wai about it later on this week. And then we've got Rewind to SmackDown on Friday night. It's headlined by talking.
They went 40 minutes last week. Will they top it?
Based on the quarters, they should have gone another hour and 20 minutes.
The whole 2 hours really should just be talking.
I mean, that might be the goal, but just do a whole
maybe throw an Irish whip in there just to say, okay, yeah, there's a wrestling for you.
Or maybe keep it talking and they can introduce
talk and wrestle at the same time.
Okay, I was about to make a pun and I'm gonna backtrack off of it now. You made me double think it. So anyway, tune in on SmackDown Friday night, and then Collision Course on Saturday. The return of John Cena after checking out some live wrestling this past weekend at House of Glory, and Kate from Montreal. So look out for that. And we'll have coverage of UFC 299 this coming Sunday with myself and Eric Marcotte, as Sean O'Malley is going to be defending the Bantamweight Championship against Marlon Vera, the one man who holds a victory over Sean O'Malley.
Cool.
Who's it going to be, Way?
The first guy.
You think Sean O'Malley? Okay, well,
yeah,
we'll hold you to that. Let us talk about some of the news items. Over the weekend, we did get a chance to go through the Freedom of Information Act request that was put in, the results of which for Ashley Massaro's case did come out. I'm not going to spend a lot of time going into it because myself and Brandon Thurston are going to do a more thorough review of the whole investigation this coming Wednesday. But just some of the notes that did come out of it. So, of course, Ashley Massaro took her life in May of 2019. Right after that, lawyer Konstantin Kairos released the affidavit that Ashley Massaro had submitted as part of their case, which they ultimately did not include in the case against WWE, that alleged that she was sexually assaulted while on a tour with other WWE members and personnel in 2006. This was in the affidavit. Of course, WWE, shortly after this affidavit was released publicly in 2019, denied any knowledge of this, which we have since heard contradicted by no less than John Laurinaitis through his lawyer, that was aware of these allegations, but denied that there was any kind of cover-up. So Tim Marchman did his report for Vice and kind of bringing these details to light, that there was an NCIS investigation at the time that affidavit was made public, but the results of which needed a Freedom of Information Act request. So those were made. Several reporters got the documents. It's about 80 or so pages. I did read the entire thing over the weekend. And basically, it was the Air Force Office of Special Investigations launched an investigation in May, and then NCIS took over the investigation in June. They conducted a number of different interviews of people that were stationed over there in Kuwait. They spoke with a representative from K&L Gates, which is the law firm that Jerry McDevitt is tied to, that has represented WWE for years. And I mean, you are dealing with, a victim who is deceased that they obviously could not speak to. Essentially, they concluded they could not locate the alleged scene of the crime and that all investigative leads had been exhausted, and the case ended up being closed on January 27th of 2020. But within the 80 or so pages, there is a lot of interesting details, in particular, this interview with this physician's assistant that was there in Kuwait. And we'll spend more time on Wednesday going through all of those exact details. If you want a further summary, you can go to the website. David Bixenspan's also done a really great report on it as well, and some of the aspects of the examination that Ashley Massaro was that was conducted on Ashley Massaro as well. So we'll spend more time on that on Wednesday. Today, WWE announced the first entrant into this year's Hall of Fame class. It is going to be Paul Heyman going in Philadelphia. Makes logical sense from a geographic perspective. And it also is kind of a different, it's a different setup now for the Hall of Fame, where you piggyback off of SmackDown. This event is already sold out. It's not like in the past where, you needed, a certain headliner that was going to sell all these tickets for a major arena. I mean, they do have this ability now that you can go whichever direction you want. I mean, certainly no one is going to have an issue with a Paul Heyman speech. I guess my question is, Wade, do you expect a similar number of entrants as we saw like last year, where it was a bit of a smaller class? Because quite frankly, you could do like a Paul Heyman 45-minute speech and maybe your Warrior Award. I think most people would be pretty much happy with that after they've sat through SmackDown. I don't think we need like the 5 to 6 inductees for this Hall of Fame, but I'm curious how many more they add to this.
Well, when have they differed in the past from the sort of requisite 5 to 6?
I mean, there were years like we were getting into, like 4-hour Hall of Fame events just because of all the speeches and such. Like the numbers were getting pretty high. I feel last year they kind of toned it down a bit by numbers wise.
I'm expecting a similar amount just to just to live up to the expectations of a class. I think it's an interesting question to consider what might be the headliner this year.
I think it's going to be Paul, wouldn't you think?
So to me, it would be, and I would assume maybe to you, and certainly everybody from Philadelphia, it would be. Is Paul Heyman a manager? A big enough name to what they consider, a headliner might be.
Well,
A
that's what I'm
show
saying.
closer.
It's like, even if you don't think that would be like, first of all, I mean, they're going to present him as, this guy that, led this strong underground alternative that created all of these stars. Like, it's all the different directions. I'll say that for the people who are like, what are you talking about? Paul Heyman as like, of course, this guy's a no-brainer for something like this. Under a Vince McMahon led Hall of Fame, there is no way this guy is headlining a Hall of Fame class. I feel pretty strongly about.
You
But
think he's
again,
at least getting in?
I think in time, yeah, he probably would have gone in. I would have been really surprised if it was Vince McMahon with the be all end all of who goes in, of headlining a Hall of Fame class with a Paul Heyman. I mean, look when Eric Bischoff went in a few years ago. Like, he was just another name on a endless list of inductees at the Thunderdome. So I mean, but that's the other thing here, is that you can essentially take a figure here. You're not selling tickets. It's, for essentially you're promoting this Hall of Fame for viewership. And Paul Heyman doing a speech on his career, I think, will be really captivating for people.
Oh, certainly, yeah. I still have my doubts about whether or not he would be like, the show closer. I just don't know how like, when have they ever had a non-wrestler close?
That's a good question. I don't know if they, off the top of my head. I mean,
And maybe Heyman would be an exception, just given Philadelphia, given the fact that Vince McMahon is no longer around. Maybe they choose to do things certainly
it's
a little bit
and
differently.
it's the first guy they're announcing. I think most are going to assume this is the headliner for it. But at least is going to get the big chance to have the lengthier speech. But yeah, your following years, what it was Ray last year, Taker before that.
But if not Heyman, who else is out there that could headline?
It's not a long list. Like, Batista is out there. He was announced that year, but then never went in after the pandemic. And then you're getting into like your Cenas.
Are there any other ECW sort of I don't know, originals that are out there that would qualify for a spot like that?
Who's not in that? The Dudleys are in.
RVD,
RVD's in.
but he's already in.
Yeah, RVD's in.
Wow,
He went in a
okay,
few
I
years
forgot.
ago.
I might have
Like,
even
you could do
been
your
in there.
Dreamer. Like, Taz is one that probably not while you're talking AEW. Although after tonight, I mean, who knows? Maybe it'll be all AEW talent. If Michael
Might be an
Cole
epic
and
speech.
Pat McAfee are in charge of the
Yeah.
class.
Well, I mean, throw your suggestions out there, chat room and in the comments. But another interesting
I
question
really
is,
don't see a whole kind of ECW theme to this. I mean,
right.
You're talking like your Sandmans, and I mean,
Yeah. DeAndre obviously brings up here Bray Wyatt, who I think very likely
they might.
might get some sort of recognition, either I mean, maybe in the form of a Hall of Fame induction or something otherwise. Who do you think inducts Paul Heyman?
CM Punk, probably.
Interesting.
Unless you want to keep,
that's a
unless they
good
want to
role.
keep it with Reigns, and keep it with like the bloodline theme. But I could see it being CM Punk.
Yeah, Punk I think would be obviously a great speech and a draw in and of itself, and it would be
Gives him a
probably
big thing for Hall of Fame weekend.
Yeah.
Something to be involved with. Last year it was the first year they did lean into making the Hall of Fame an extension of the storyline with Ray and Dominik. I don't think anybody really wants to see that with Heyman, where you're keeping it to like he's playing the wink wink like advocate or whatever it is, the wise man of the bloodline.
right.
I think you can do this clean break where it's CM Punk and Paul Heyman just as themselves doing your like that. To me is, quite frankly, if you're doing a Punk speech and a Heyman speech, sure, you do your Warrior Award, you're like one or two others. That's good. Like, I think like let them have their speech time. And like we learned from Sting on Sunday, people want to hear from these people. We don't need to be racing through a Heyman speech because, we're at the end of the night and we've gone through 5 or 6 speeches already.
Sure.
I prefer just a smaller class. The Hall of Fame, to me, it doesn't need to be this marathon event. It's for an audience that's already sat through 2 hours of SmackDown. Most are probably going to one, if not two, WWE shows the very next day. I mean, this should be a 90-minute event.
I think this should replace SmackDown, actually. I mean, give me your big segments, sure, but like for the most part, I mean, the go home show to WrestleMania doesn't really give you a whole lot, beyond like recaps and video packages. Why don't you just put some of these speeches on TV?
I mean, if you're gonna let guys go out there and talk for 40 minutes, you can certainly do the Hall of Fame on and not worry about your numbers going down.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I guess this is not the year for The Rock to go. I think honestly, if the Rock's not in it, is he?
No.
You are not the Hall of Fame historian, are you?
If you don't know, then I certainly don't
can't
know.
keep track
Okay.
of who's in this WWE Hall of Fame or not. I'm looking at last year. It was only Ray, Great Muta, Stacy Keibler, Andy Kaufman, and Tim White. So there were 5 last year that they inducted.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess we've got to have our celebrity as well.
Mm-hmm.
Art Donovan
got my vote.
Okay. Vince McMahon sold some more shares today. So this was hilarious because last week, Brandon Ross asked on the TKO earnings call about Vince McMahon like selling more shares. If you remember, last November he sold something like 8.4 million shares, and this giant sale of shares led to the stock dropping like 6% that day. It was like a big unloading of stock. So there was the question last week of, does Vince McMahon plan to unload any more shares? And Mark Shapiro, I'm paraphrasing, but he pretty much said, we don't know what Vince McMahon is up to. We're not communicating with him. You'll find out when we do. We don't know if he wants to sell or not. And then today he unloads over 5.3 million shares worth $412 million. And he still has 15 million TKO shares. But I mean, he's now sold like over 13 million shares since the formation of TKO. So still has 9% of the company stock. And we'll see how the stock responds tomorrow with this news. It was not good the last time. This is not as big an amount as he sold the last time, but still sizable, like for Vince McMahon. But still.
So what we're talking about is Vince McMahon now owns 9% of TKO.
Yes, and now has $412 million of spending money.
I wonder what he's going to do with it.
I don't know. Mike Santana is done with AEW. He was quietly removed from their roster page. Fightful reporting that he is done with the company, and I guess this is not too surprising. He has been pretty inactive when it comes to AEW. He has not performed since last October when he did. It was so bizarre. He came back after the knee injury where he was out for over a year, and of course had the real life falling out with Ortiz, and they moved that into a program on television, and the feud was exclusively on Rampage, including the blow-off match, which Santana won. And then there was no follow-up to it afterward. And he's been doing independents since then. He's the House of Glory champion. He's been doing all different independents. He did a Game Changer shot a while back. And it looks like, at least for the immediate future, he'll have the independents. But now he is contractually free that we will see if anyone else takes a gamble on him. He is someone that I think everyone can see the potential that just has not been realized. I think he is a great promo. Just didn't get a whole lot of those opportunities. And the Ortiz feud was kind of, it was not to me like a great program, not terrible, but it
was kind of rushed, and it was just kind of like, shoved on Rampage without that much fanfare.
Yeah, it was an awkward program. Like Mike Santana's had his good moments. He's also had his bad moments. I would like to see him, in a place like a TNA that would, I think, really develop his character stuff, and maybe that's a company that's interested in him.
That's immediately the place I thought of. I mean, I mean, obviously he already has the history with the company, and I think he comes in right now with the sort of interest in seeing Mike Santana achieve something greater, I think has always been there. And he's one of those guys that AEW has held onto that never really had it realized. And that's the perfect space for somebody to go to Impact in order to foster that potential. So I think that's like a something I could see him immediately doing. The entire AEW, like the end of the AEW run, has felt like it was really weird. Whatever was happening with him and Ortiz, at least they managed to patch things up, well enough to get through the closing feud. But for whatever reason, it was not featured and it was not followed up on. Like, what has Ortiz done since then?
Nothing. No, it's like both guys, you cannot argue that the breakup of their team didn't do either guy any favors. Santana also had the major injury in there. I mean, that took him out for over a year.
He also publicly stated he just went 1 year sober.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, congratulations to him for that. But obviously, some struggles in that department as well.
Dark Side of the Ring is coming back on Tuesday night, and the first episode is on John Tenta, the Ballad of John Earthquake Tenta. And I was just going to talk a little bit about Earthquake, because this is, I guess, if you were thinking of like subjects for Dark Side of the Ring, I don't know if John Tenta is in your immediate list of there's a subject for Dark Side of the Ring. I
mean, we are in what, season 4, 5 at this point?
I think so. We're getting to.
Everybody's got a dark side, I'm sure.
Well, John Tenta was a sad story. Like, he to a person it just seemed like one of those very just salt of the earth type of guys that everyone just thought was like a really laid back, cool guy that, was stricken with cancer at such a young age. I mean, John Tenta always looked way older than he was. I mean, he died at the age of 42 from bladder cancer, which is it's tragic. He had a wife and 3 children, and based on the preview, several his widow and at least one of his children was interviewed. I don't know if the other children were as well. Jake Roberts was interviewed for this, Haku, Jerry Saggs, Fred Ottman. I don't know if the show itself will feature Haku's reaction to the Shockmaster, but it was definitely an outtake that was the greatest commercial for this episode.
It really was, and I'm guessing it that really has nothing to do with John Tenta.
Well, it is this episode because it's the only episode where Fred Ottman would be featured that they would. I mean, they probably are just because it really doesn't have anything to do with Tenta beyond it's his former partner doing this.
That's what I mean. I imagine Fred Ottman came up in the conversation and somebody might have brought up Shockmaster and Haku.
You've never seen it?
I've never seen it. I mean, that for a show called Dark Side of the Ring, that was about like the most wholesome thing I've seen on the internet in quite a while. I'm always interested in any subject that Dark Side of the Ring brings up. At this point, I'm more of a fan of the series rather than even any of the particular subjects, because I know, it's a great documentary series and the crew is great. And I think they'll find something interesting, I'm sure, for us to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, like, not all these stories have to be like doom and gloom. And granted, like it's a sad story in terms of his passing, but he was somebody at a very young age. Like he was an amateur wrestler that went to Louisiana State University, and then he got involved in sumo, going over to Japan, and went through that whole system, and it was not for him, and leaves sumo, and it was kind of controversial at the time, and both Inoki and Baba wanted this guy because of the sumo pedigree, and he signed with All Japan, debuted there in '87, and was immediately teaming with Baba, teaming with Jumbo Tsuruta, so they saw him as a big deal out of the gate. And then 2 years later, he joins the WWF, and they did the angle where he was just randomly spotted in the crowd and brought into the ring and did an angle with the Ultimate Warrior and aligning himself with Dino Bravo and Jimmy Hart as the Canadian Earthquake. And his big angle was in the summer of 1990, taking out Hulk Hogan. And then the two of them were paired at SummerSlam that year. And that year's SummerSlam did like over 500,000 buys. It was not that far off from WrestleMania that year. And while Warrior and Rick Rude was the title program for SummerSlam, Hogan and Earthquake was promoted as like the big grudge match for SummerSlam. And I would certainly give those two the credit for that number doing so well. And I mean, afterward, like he got his big match with Hogan, and then I won't say he was like totally phased down. He had the run with Typhoon as the Natural Disasters. They had a run with the tag titles. Before that, he did the program with Jake, and that was another memorable angle. Not for everybody out there, because he ended up killing Damian by running the ropes and hitting the seated splash onto Damian inside of the bag. And then they had to inform everyone it was not really Damian in there. But that was the end of Damian. And then
talk about dark side of the ring. They could do a whole episode on this angle, and
that might be the dark side is the
torment and the nightmares and the tears he would have drawn from children everywhere watching this.
So, I mean, the guy did have his memorable angles, and this is before we even get to WCW. But I mean, he went to War for a while, and then hooks up in WCW, and just had a parade of some of the most horrible gimmicks. He was Avalanche, he was Shark, and then he had his Butch Pete Dunne moment, where one of my favorite promos of all time. I'm not the Shark, I'm not a fish, I'm not an avalanche, I'm a man. And thus John Tenta was born. And unfortunately, that was kind of his end note for WCW, and then pops up as Golga in WWF. And his last run was in All Japan in 02-03 and got sick. And it was just a sad story. And he was someone that I remember, he would be a frequent contributor on the WrestleCrap message board, and just like totally took it all in stride. Him and Fred Ottman, I will say, like having, just those two guys, they don't take any of their stuff seriously at all when it comes to their awful like they think it's hilarious that they got to play these roles. And I think everyone has a soft spot for people that don't take this stuff so seriously and can laugh at things like Shark.
How could you not? I mean, it's completely ridiculous. But I mean, you have me interested, John, in what this episode might entail.
He led. It was a short life, but he had a really interesting life. I would really be fascinated by the sumo stuff. I hope that, and based on the photos they put out promoting the episode, it seems like they will go into that, because that's an interesting unexplored part of his pre-wrestling career.
What are some of the other topics this season?
Black Saturday is one of them. Chris Colt, who's a figure not too many people might know of, but real interesting story as well in there.
It looks like here I got a list here. Chris Adams,
you got the list.
Sensational Sherry, Terry Gordy, Black Saturday, as you mentioned, the Sandman, Harley Race, and Buff Bagwell and Brutus Beefcake as well.
Buff Bagwell and Brutus Beefcake is one. Okay. Oh, they're separate episodes. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he was featured in this video as well with Scotty Riggs that DDP just put out, and it's like Buff seems to be like there's at least a happy story at the end of it of this guy who was just riddled with substance abuse problems and such. But there you go. That's Dark Side of the Ring coming back on Tuesday night, and then final things here are our favorite ratings notes. We go to SmackDown on Friday night, featuring the return of The Rock and the 40-minute Bloodline Rock segment to start the show, doing 2,348,000 viewers and a 0.64 in the demo. So only up 3% from last week's tape show. This was actually the second lowest audience of the year, although the first three segments did do very well. Throughout those 40 minutes, like they grew the audience like 18%, and then it lowered, but wasn't enough to lift the whole number. They were up against the Celtics and Mavericks game, but SmackDown did win the night in sports. So while it didn't exactly, skyrocket the US number, in Canada, they did 290,000 viewers, and this was the largest number since March 31st going into WrestleMania last year. They were number 2 for the night in sports, behind curling. Curling was number 1 with the Briar, and they did beat the Raptors Golden State Warriors game on Sportsnet 1 and a Jays preseason game. So it did mean more in Canada than it did the US, it appears.
Beat the Briar?
No, did not beat the Briar.
Oh, did not beat the
Briar. Was number 1. Wait, come on.
What was I thinking? Yeah.
I think I'm crazy.
My whole family was watching the Briar. Yeah.
Rampage did 344,000 viewers and a 0.10, down 6% from last week, and a drop in women 18 to 49, drop in 18 to 34. Not a very strong show that featured Matt Sydal and Magnus, who I guess did not skyrocket the Rampage number either. Tuesday night is Roadblock with Tony D'Angelo against Carmelo Hayes. Winner faces Ilya Dragunov at Stand and Deliver. Baron Corbin and Braun Breaker against Andre Chase and Duke Hudson for the NXT tag titles. An Asylum match between Dijak and Joe Gacy. The Kabuki Warriors against Lyra Valkyria and Tatum Paxley. And Sean Spears will be in action. His first match since returning to NXT.
Cool.
What a highlight. And there you go. That is what is coming up on Tuesday night. Tune in to Up Next, 10 Eastern, right after here on the Post Wrestling YouTube channel. But now we're going to shift focus and head to the Frost Bank Center in San Antonio, Texas. Sellout crowd, 13,500 tickets distributed, according to WrestleTix. And we start things off, in case you didn't have time, too long, didn't read the Bloodline segment, condensed to a 90-second video package. And then Cody is out to start the show and calls The Rock a distraction, and noted that The Rock posted a 16-minute video on Instagram, then deleted it, and then re-uploaded a 21-minute director's cut version.
Always a bit embarrassing when you're tweeting and deleting, and I guess he had Rock was on his Adobe Premiere. He had the in and out at the wrong time, and therefore he exported maybe a shorter version of what he intended. It happens.
Dwayne. So he said never to talk about my dog, because he had some choice words for Pharaoh, and noted how Rock sidestepped his challenge and spun the situation like a true politician, and says what Rock said into his ear was that the people don't want Roman Reigns and Cody. They want The Rock and Roman Reigns, but the people said something different. So he brings out the human highlight marker, Seth Rollins, who came out in neon yellow. And Cody explains he didn't even know if he was going to be on WrestleMania this year. Yes, Cody was worried that if he didn't face Roman, he might not be booked this year.
I'm sure he would have found his way into the Andre Battle Royal.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Maybe, yeah, he would have had to buy a ticket.
Maybe that's an IC title gauntlet.
But he changed his mind once he saw Rock's PowerPoint presentation about how his family was better than everyone else's, and took the challenge for Roman, which he was owed. So he understands if Seth needs to focus on Drew and not team with me at WrestleMania. Rollins explains he's got his back. Taking down the bloodline needs to be done. It's my story too. When I came up with Roman Reigns, we wanted to take the power from the top, but now Roman just wants the power for himself. And Rollins says he's over The Rock, and he hasn't been the people's champion for a while. Guy hasn't been cool in 20 years. I'm not going to call him The Rock anymore. I'm going to call him Diarrhea Dwayne. It's like, oh my God. Well, if Rock hasn't been cool in 20 years, you're not beating him to the punch either. And then, I swear to God, in one of the most embarrassing chants you're ever going to hear at a wrestling show, the crowd starts chanting diarrhea.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so what do we have right now? We've got Cody Crybabies. We've got
clown emoji. Is that Seth's
clown emoji, Seth Rollins, and we've got Diarrhea Dwayne. I mean, it really just feels like, Seth is fighting fire with fire here, putting some of his best material to go up against what Dwayne is giving us.
Boy. Yeah. The guns blazing here. He dares The Rock to try and make his title go away, and then says that he was cleared this morning, so he's showing up at SmackDown this Friday to confront the bloodline, and asks Cody, will you have my back on Friday? So Cody says, I'm not going to whine in a 21-minute promo, which was about the length of this promo of what it was clocking out to be. And he's coming to SmackDown in Dallas, and will give him a clear answer of what is happening at WrestleMania. So we responded to a 21-minute promo with our own 20-minute promo to tee up this Friday's likely 20-plus minute promo. There's a lot of talking before we can get to the official announcement.
We have a lot of weeks, I guess, still to go to WrestleMania. Okay, we have an entire month, and that means a lot of talking and a lot of stretching before we get any sort of movement in some of these storylines. Will
that be a segment, the official stretching before WrestleMania? The night before, they're going to stretch?
Yeah. The official yoga class before WrestleMania. I think we got something here. For one thing, we got the coining of the term Diarrhea Dwayne. A monumental night, I think, in professional wrestling history. Say what you will about that line.
Are they going to make a T-shirt out of that?
What photo would you put to support that?
God knows what, but the dude that bought the Vince Loves Cock shirt. I mean, I feel it's been enough time that he wants to get an upgrade to his wardrobe, and this shirt might.
It would get a certain good amount of ironic buys, I'm sure. Maybe diapers. Yeah, never mind. But say what you will about it, though. This crowd was there to support it. They were chanting diarrhea. Now let's see if
they ran with it.
on well, let's see if on Friday they continue and they make this a thing. This almost felt like one of the, because it felt like so kind of like out of character for Seth Rollins to say, like for The Rock, like this is like you would have sworn maybe he even came out with diarrhea, Dwayne. But for Rollins, this is kind of out of character. So it almost felt like the type of thing where he might have seen it in the script and he would have said, "You actually want me to say this?" And then at this point, you're just like, "Fuck it, I'm just gonna do it, try to get it over." And it got over. Like this crowd was chanting diarrhea, so they might know their audience better than we do, John.
Don't underestimate this audience.
Yeah,
I'll surprise you.
Beyond that, you had essentially confirmation from Cody that what The Rock said in his 21-minute, not 15-minute Twitter promo, was essentially like the way things actually went in their meeting with each other, right? Cody basically confirmed The Rock sweet talked him into convincing him that the people wanted to see Roman versus Rock instead, which is exactly what Dwayne said. So like, it's not like Cody was refuting or accusing The Rock of lying there. He just basically said, I changed my mind when I saw that PowerPoint. So, I mean, the PowerPoint really, really, really angered him.
How does that conversation go? You know, Cody, the people really don't want that match. They want me and Reigns. Huh. Yeah. You're probably right.
We needed a reenactment. Maybe he showed him the PowerPoint then. And
I kind of wasted my time in this Royal Rumble. You're right. Like, why am I doing this? I'll sit out this year.
Still really not that satisfied with the answer, but at least we have an answer right now, and let's just kind of move forward from there. They are very much keeping Rock and Cody as a singles match alive. Essentially, you had Cody here say The Rock suggesting a tag team match is him cowering away from the singles match. So that is still our end game: Rock versus Cody in a singles capacity,
with the power at stake. Somehow the winner of this tag match will usurp all of the power into one fortress. Right.
Well, it does clear the path for Cody to face the Roman one-on-one, and Roman losing the championship is the source of the power, I guess.
Who does Rock have to answer to if he violates his own stipulation the next night and gets involved?
Ari?
You think Ari's going to watch WrestleMania this year?
Most shows,
I think maybe
no.
night two. Maybe night two.
He would stick around for the majority of night 2. Yeah, sure. Yeah. He'd be there for the Rock match. I don't think he's there for the kickoff. No way.
No, he's not a kickoff viewer. Yeah. Gunther and Dominik Mysterio kick off the wrestling portion of the show. And I had to rewind this because at the beginning, Michael Cole congratulates WWE Hall of Famer Sting on his retirement after a 40-year career. And Pat McAfee saying, yeah, that match was epic last night. And then they quickly moved on. I think literally as this line was uttered, you could hear Vince McMahon picking up his phone to announce, I'm selling my stock immediately.
This, I would say, like, was one of the more noteworthy, newsworthy kind of talked about things of the entire night. The fact that the WWE not just recognize the retirement of an AEW roster member, they acknowledge that he had a match last night, and they also praised the match, calling it epic. So this comes after like not referencing anything at all on their social media prior to this.
Some performers did,
but not the WWE themselves.
No,
not through their official account. Unlike every other promotion, which did something.
I mean, so, in a way, I mean, this very much babyface WWE to its audience that they were nice here, while at the same time giving nothing for this retirement. That I'm sure they were asked of, like, can we use any footage for this one final retirement? It was like, no, we're not going to help you out there, but we'll give a mention on our show and we'll look great in the process after the fact.
Yeah. Whatever. Who knows? Like, who knows what exactly is going on? But I think you're right though. Like, this is now, I think, a regime that recognizes this does not hurt you by acknowledging the retirement.
Oh no, to your audience, you look like what nice guys here. But I would state that, like, it was. I'd be more impressed if you like actually did something in terms of handing over. Like, I mean, they have like 85% of this guy's history that I'm sure could have really enhanced this retirement ceremony, and they opted not to do that.
But do we know that there was an attempt made from Tony Khan?
I would think at the very least, when they have reciprocated on their end for the John Cena appreciation night, I would think that at the very least that they would have reached out.
But is the AEW WWE relationship at a maybe is it in a worse state now? Maybe compared to then? Do we know? I mean, whatever. Who knows? We're just speculating.
I mean, they're competitors. I mean, it is what it is. But I took this as something that they look very good by doing this, and just giving like a nice shout out that the audience will state. But it's like it does go both ways.
Mm-hmm.
Gunther and Dominik. I enjoyed this match quite a lot. Gunther was great. Dominik was just as great. He is just playing the ultimate coward, running away from this guy. And when he finally got his hands on him, he chopped Dominik, ripped his shirt off, crowd's chanting one more time. And then JD gets on the apron. So Gunther releases a Boston Crab, and Dominik drop kicks him off the apron. And Dominik has to try and get some offense in here. He tries for a 619 and gets a lariat that takes his head off. And then Gunther lifts him up as he's covering him and hits him with this overhand swat. Powerbomb gets countered with a sunset flip by Dominik, who hits a 619 onto Gunther, misses the frog splash, and then boom, shotgun drop kick, powerbomb, and a Boston Crab as Gunther wins in 9 minutes and 16 seconds. I thought Dominik was a great opponent for Gunther to just play around with, and got in a little bit of offense, and I thought this was a lot of fun.
It was so much fun. One of the better Gunther matches I think we've seen I mean, they're all really great, but this one I think stands out because it was Gunther playing a babyface. And it's hard for me to recall the last time he might have done that on certainly within the WWE. He was facing somebody that the crowd disliked more than, they usually dislike Gunther in Dominik. And as a pretty low ranking heel in Dominik, like they gave Dominik a lot of offense against Gunther. And it was to the betterment of the match. It made for such an entertaining, back in some ways a back and forth battle, but in more ways, Gunther just kind of chopping the shit out of this guy. And it was, to me, the type of match that'll captivate somebody watching wrestling for the first time. It was that good.
Pierce runs into Damage Control and asks why they're here, and they're here to scout Baszler and Stark. And Nakamura walks in, needs to talk to Pierce, and Kai assures Pierce that there's nothing to worry about. And Pierce notes he's going to have an announcement later tonight regarding the IC title. And Dakota Kai was the heel mouthpiece for the Kabuki Warriors after the attack on Bayley on Friday. Kayden Carter and Katana chants against Shayna Baszler and Zoey Stark. Chance and Carter, you can't get their spirits down. They might have lost the tag belts, but they're coming back just in time for WrestleMania to win their tag belts back. We'll see about that. Damage Control is ringside for this one, and we get a proper Spanish Fly, the Maximo's version by Chance and Carter, delivered onto Stark. And Carter then has Stark on her shoulders, and Chance steps off Stark's body into a Rana on Shayna Baszler. Doesn't get a 10 on execution, but definitely, pulled it off by the end of this. Yes. Mm-hmm. They go for the after party and nearly killed Stark hitting this. Yes, this was not a party for Zoey Stark taking this. And then Carter gets caught in the Kirifuda as Stark manages to roll up Katana Chance in 644. And Dakota Kai gets into the ring, says, after we have the Kabuki Warriors defend the titles at NXT, so they're not overlooking Tatum and Lyra, they will come back to Raw in Houston next week and give them a title shot. And Dakota Kai insults San Antonio because Houston is so much better. And this crowd kind of felt like, it's the same state. We're fine with Houston. We're not going to get too upset over that. And Baszler says, we'll see you next week. So presumably the Kabuki Warriors will retain tomorrow night and face them next week.
We presume, yes.
Yeah. Or could we get Tatum Paxley in Houston next week? Probably not.
Yeah, I'm going to say no. Yeah. After party botch aside, I thought Chance and Carter continued to look very entertaining with introducing a lot of fun tag team moves. And, sorry.
Please. It's okay. I understand. Chance and Carter, they way suffering from the effects of his own after party. Judgment Day was in the trainer's room. Do you need the trainer's room?
Yeah, I'm like, sorry.
They are tending to Dominik, and Priest tells Balor they're going to make things right with Imperium tonight, while JD needs to make things right with Gunther. And he's like, pardon me, Gunther? And so that's a match to come. Gunther and the former Jordan Devlin. Yeah, so a reunion between those two.
Big OTT rivalry, yeah.
Becky Lynch against Nia Jax. So Nia Jax takes the early portion of this match, including an avalanche in the corner and then rubbing her ass into Becky's face. That Michael Cole notes is shades of Rikishi.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Jax hits a Samoan drop on the floor.
Diarrhea Dwayne.
Diarrhea Dwayne. I mean, that was this could have been I mean, if this was at Elimination Chamber, it would have been a Diarrhea Ripley. Sorry.
Very good.
Becky tries the manhandle slam. It's blocked. And then Becky hits the Molly go round onto Jax. And then there's another Samoan drop by Nia Jax and sets up the Annihilator, misses. Damian wishes that there would have been this kind of a miss, but no. Jax comes up empty, and then the disarmer is applied into a regular armbar. They go to the floor. Becky is swung into the barricade, and then, like Batman appearing on a skyscraper, it's Liv Morgan just randomly standing on the barricade, leaps onto Jax for the disqualification in 10:57. Liv and Becky are pissed at one another. Jax attacks both women, leaving them laying, including a leg drop to Liv on the floor.
Yeah. So obviously, returning the favor for what Becky Lynch did to her last week, and continuing this Becky Lynch Liv Morgan feud, and possibly a Liv Morgan heel turn coming out of all of this. So, given all of those story repercussions, I didn't dislike this finish at all. I thought it played perfectly to the storylines that they're trying to build. The match itself, I mean, some sloppiness from both women. Not just maybe one party, but it almost didn't matter so much to this crowd because they were very engaged, very reactive for the entire thing, especially after the commercial break. So I thought it actually ended up being a very exciting match, and so much of that I think is because of the very strong feud that they built between these two. Something is really at stake for Becky here to beat Nia.
Yeah, and they're keeping this win over Nia elusive. Do you see them doing the match like she gets the win before Mania, or do you keep this outstanding? Like this could be something post-Mania for Becky.
At this point, you could. I mean, it's not like Becky will be even that much hotter having beaten Nia. Like, she doesn't really need it. People are already interested enough in seeing her versus Rhea. Could you save it for a future title defense? I mean, it feels like it might be a pay-per-view worthy match having Nia be Becky's first challenger.
Maybe. We'll see.
I just say that more so just given the storyline, given the sort of size, like the characters. But I also see three-way possibly here with Liv Morgan prior to.
I think we're going to see some combinations of this in the next few weeks. Ricochet is in the back complaining to Adam Pearce that he's never on TV, basically, and Pearce is just like, "Trust me." Ricochet's like, "Okay, I trust you." Like, I've been on. I think he's had one televised match this year, and it was the Royal Rumble.
That might be one more than Apollo Crews.
Who? Judgment Day walk in and explain that JD wants a shot at Gunther, and JD starts making his pitch for why he should face Gunther, and they just fade to the commercial as he's talking.
Yeah, poor JD.
Like, what a disrespect. I mean, we're not going to listen to you make your, and he's not part of this six-way either. It's just like, you're just a complete goof.
I guess he's going to get Gunther in a singles match, and he's going to get the shit beat out of him.
Okay.
Okay. He'll get his opportunity without having going through the gauntlet.
Becky and Liv just screamed at each other, and Becky explained she had already apologized, so you shouldn't have still been upset, and let's fight next week. Liv's like, cool. And then Rhea Ripley just walks by and smiles at Becky. That was our WrestleMania promotion on tonight's show for this title match in a couple of weeks.
I mean, we have a month, okay? So plenty of time at this point. What more do you want from them? How many promos do they need to cut with each other? They're saving it. We got to get through this Liv Morgan feud first, which I think is
Nia Jax. I mean, we got 4 weeks and like as many feuds that Becky's involved in.
That's right. Yeah. I think Liv sounded good here. I mean, I'm happy to see that she's in a focused storyline and she's being given an interesting character, you know. So I hope to see them maybe not complete a full heel turn, but like something very similar to a Drew McIntyre type of slow build, because it's actually making me a lot more interested in Liv Morgan than usual.
Adam Pearce's big multi-camera shoot was to announce a gauntlet match for next week with Sami Zayn, Ricochet,
This guy
Shinsuke
made us
Nakamura.
wait, like what? He made all those guys leave his room and wait to tell them about a gauntlet match.
Yeah, and he said last week he was planning something for the IC title. So like he's been thinking about this for more than a week.
He made this plan seem like it was like, you know, like he had to really, really like, you know, work at it
Oh,
and
sorry, JD
engineer it.
is in this match. Okay, my mistake. I
Oh,
didn't
okay.
even realize JD was in this
Sorry.
match.
He almost faded out of this graphic. It looks
I
like.
thought he was making his pitch and he wasn't even included in this. He at least, okay, he made enough of a case that he's in this match.
All right, he made it. Yes.
Okay.
We take it back.
I don't think he's winning this one. That would be my prediction. I am predicting this is going to be a long match next week. I could see this being like an hour.
I mean, it's a gauntlet match. We've seen Kofi Mania, remember?
Yep.
You know, like, so maybe it should be.
And
an
you've
hour.
got Zayn to be that role. Zayn or Gable can play the role of like running the table, and then they either win or come up short in the end. So, I mean, it should be fantastic given the talent that is in this match next week.
Yes. Yes. So thank you, Adam Pearce.
Andrade against a newcomer by the name of Apollo Crews. Michael Cole reminds us Andrade used to be La Sombra, which is now the name of his finisher.
Mm-hmm. Which
And,
I guess didn't have a name before. That Hammerlock DDT.
Wasn't it just El Idolo? Wasn't that what he called it?
So he swapped his finisher's name for a
He used to call his
old
finisher
name.
one of his names, and now he's calling it another one of his names.
Right.
So, you know, he likes to keep his names pretty succinct. You know, he's got his trademarks out, and he wants to
maybe expand that palette a little bit more. There's more than
hit him with
three
the
names.
Andrade. So, I mean, Jesus, Apollo hit a superplex. That was his big moment. Three Amigos by Andrade. Crowd got into that, and then running double knees, La Sombra, and he wins in 3 minutes and 25 seconds. And poor Apollo.
I mean, it's WrestleMania season, John. Not everybody gets a prime role. What are we expecting? I mean, you do feel for Cruz though, because it's not like he can go back down to NXT to refreshen himself.
He got the refresh, and he's back at square one, if not back further.
Yeah. So what do you do if you're an Apollo Crews? You know, how do you improve your stock within the company? You've already shown that even spending months in TV production creating those vignettes for you isn't helping you whatsoever. And it's just such a shame because you see the raw material, like the raw potential is there in this guy. How could they not do something special with Apollo Crews? How could they not make money with Apollo Crews? Yet here we are.
If you have nothing going on for two guys, I always are like him and Ricochet, for instance. They'd be a phenomenal tag team together. Like
they're like
these
best
guys
friends.
are like they're best friends. You know that the chemistry would be there. They'd probably like, listen, we're not getting anywhere on our own. Let's just attack this tag division. They'd probably be great in a tag division. And that's my argument for some of these people that are just like on a path to nowhere at this point. And that's sort of how he feels, like outside of the hope of getting a Nigerian drum fight for WrestleMania.
He was better off actually with that gimmick.
So yes, he's 1-0 in Nigerian drum fights. So the other streak. Jackie Redmond interviews Sami Zayn. This is his path to WrestleMania, this gauntlet match. It's the biggest match of my career, he states. And Valhalla calls him pathetic. And Ivar has been praying to the gods. Of course he has. So Zayn is like, well, how about we have a match? Ivar's like, cool. And they do.
Sami, by far, I mean, feels like the standout choice to face Gunther at Mania. They're giving him the most airtime, and I think maybe the most interesting story of a bit of self-doubt here, you know, compared to, I mean, certainly the rest of the field. They're not doing this for Apollo Ricochet.
They did include a graphic for the Butcher, Paul Vachon, and then we go to the women's locker room, and Candice LeRae, somehow over the last week, she is now a heel. She is explaining to Indy Hartwell. Indy is explaining that, well, we lost our chance, but there's always next time. Candace says, there might not be a next time. Do you see how few opportunities we get on this brand? And then we cut to Natalya with Tegan Nox next to them. And Natalya is frustrated at their lack of momentum, stating that when you tried to eliminate me in the Rumble, Tegan, that probably wasn't the best idea to help our cause. And Tegan pulls up the fact that you tried to eliminate me first. Natalya just like gaslights her and says, that's not how it happened at all. And I'm the veteran. You need to listen to me. Candace says to Indy, maybe we need to be listening to Natalya. Then Maxine and Ivy Nile walk in, and Candace doesn't want a pity party from Maxine. What have you had? 3 matches? You can't even lace my boots. And then Indy apologizes to Maxine as Candace storms off here.
Mm-hmm.
A lot going on here.
Listen, this tag team women's division.
Ivy's like, what did I even walk into?
Yeah. This tag team women's division does not get a whole lot of airtime on this 3-hour show, and therefore they have to cram it about as much as you saw here in order to tell these stories. I think it's a positive that we at least got some sort of character development here with Candace hinting at a bit of a heel turn here. It's something which is more than I could have said for her throughout her past 2 years. And the rest just felt like a bit of a reestablisher of who the actual tag teams are in this division, because I don't know if I would have been able to remember. Are any of these teams getting on WrestleMania?
Next up, Damian Priest and unless there's some giant match to involve them all, I wouldn't say. Like this was like taking attendance of, inventory of who's in the tag division. Damian Priest and Finn Balor against Imperium. Nice match that they had here, 14 minutes or so. Save for a spot that Balor almost died. We have a double team on Balor as he's knocked to the floor, setting up the first break. They build to the tag to Damian Priest, and he hits a broken arrow to Kaiser, tries for the Razor's Edge. It's avoided. And then Vinci holds on to Balor's leg from the floor, which sets up Kaiser hitting a Death Valley driver. And then he goes to toss Balor off the turnbuckle for Vinci to catch, and they nearly lose Balor in midair here, but he ended up being fine. Coup de grace onto Kaiser. Vinci makes the save, and then Balor with the Tope Con Hero onto Kaiser, and Priest ends it with a South of Heaven to Giovanni Vinci in 14 minutes and 13 seconds. The interesting aspect was we got Gunther working as kind of like the monster babyface against Dominik. And then in this one, it was Judgment Day as full-on babyfaces against Imperium.
Mm-hmm. I noted that too. Yeah. I mean, modern wrestling basically kind of tells you it doesn't really matter who is a heel or who a babyface. You tailor the match according to who the crowd likes more, who the crowd wants to cheer more, who's the bigger star. And I guess in Gunther's case, it was Gunther. In Balor and Priest's case, it was Balor and Priest. But a very good match here. These 4 working really fast. They managed to really get the crowd. I mean, this crowd sounded really good all night.
Michael Cole reflects on his time when he was calling SmackDown with Taz and having to be produced by Paul Heyman at Titan Towers on Wednesday nights as they throw to the announcement of Heyman going into the Hall of Fame. Maybe Brian Gewirtz inducts him.
Do they have a significant relationship?
Oh, they do. Yes, if you want to go into their history. I mean,
okay.
On good terms now. So there, add him to the list. Jackie is with Drew McIntyre. Another great promo. He refers to Seth Rollins as a spotlight junkie. Your responsibilities are here on Raw, not focusing on what is important. And you get involved with every new person that shows up. When Cody arrived, when Punk came back, now Rock is here. You're a grown man. Just show up at WrestleMania. This title deserves better. And Jey Uso, you dimwit, I know how much you need this victory, but there is no chance you're winning this match tonight.
Lovely. Fantastic.
Great promo. Damage Control run into Rhea Ripley, and Ripley tells Io, stay out of my territory. And Io laughs. It's a big night for Rhea Ripley.
I guess so. She had a scene backstage with Dominik as well.
She consoled Dominik, smiled at Becky, and warned Io.
Yeah. I mean, is this leading to anything, or is it just something cute they like to do with, having the 2 champions square off?
At best, you're going to get Rhea against Asuka or someone. And I don't even think, I don't even think you're going to get anything.
Maybe not.
Unlikely. Sami Zayn and Ivar. So Valhalla comes out and places the antlers on Michael Cole. The crowd, outside of diarrhea, thought this was the most incredibly funny thing they had ever seen. And they're chanting Michael. We got the telestrator later to describe this, and Michael Cole had to call this with the antlers on, comparing it to what JR must have felt like wearing that stupid cowboy hat.
A second AEW reference of the night.
I was waiting for Pat. Oh, it'd be like calling wrestling with a mask on like Excalibur. Be really tough.
I mean, this antler thing with Cole is a long-term story here. We finally get a bit of a payoff, and they really liked it on
Watch,
their
it's like a
production.
curse. So when Eric comes back, like Michael Cole has been marked for death or something.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Really good match between these two. Ivar goes for a suplex off the turnbuckle, but it's reversed in midair with Zayn coming down on top. The haluva kick gets stopped with a spin kick, and then Ivar hits the tiger driver. Zayn powers Ivar up for an exploder into the corner, goes for the haluva, but this time it's stopped with a seated senton out of the corner. Doomsault misses, and on the third try, connects with the haluva kick in 10 minutes and 14 seconds. And Ivar is having the greatest streak of singles matches for a career that is going nowhere, but he continues to just have great matches every time out.
I mean, I would argue he's doing better now than he has throughout his entire WWE run, where he was in a tag team that was going nowhere and for half the time wasn't even featured on TV. Now he finds himself in a spot that is pretty consistent on the show as the giant to put over, your principal characters like a Sami Zayn. And he's been very consistent in
He's a great
just
utility guy.
I mean, that's what a giant, unless you're Gunther, tends to be these days, for a lot of modern professional wrestling that's based around lighter guys, right? The giants aren't really your top stars. They're the guys that make the lighter guys look good.
Well, Bronson Reed was in to make himself look great because he attacks Zayn, hits him with the tsunami as our precursor to the gauntlet next week. Kathy Kelly speaks with Gunther. Always a fun time on Raw when Gunther gets to speak. This man, he's just got this shit-eating grin. And he gives credit to Dominik for stepping up, but I never questioned the outcome. And then he is asked about the field for this gauntlet and how stacked it is. Well, it should be stacked, and I'm flattered for the creme de la creme to earn a spot to be humiliated and outclassed. The creme de la creme.
That's pretty good. First time I've heard your Gunther.
Oh my God, he's the best. Gable walks in. He is sick of Gunther's condescending smile. I am not. And he can't get over what you did to my daughter. You insulted me not just as a man, but as a father. And it's my path to redemption. And I swore that I would cash in on my promise last September to take that smile on your face and put it onto my daughters. And Gunther just laughs at this soon-to-be failed promise and walks away.
Mm-hmm. You notice how Gable is wearing now these sort of suits and suit jackets? And I mean, obviously, it's intentional, and I think it's effective. Clearly, they are trying to distance him from being the shush Alpha Academy guy who does just kind of silly things, comic relief on the show. It's a lot to ask of people, though. You've just
to wear a suit.
No, you've given us comedy Chad Gable for, I don't know, 6 months, however long since the last Gunther match, and now you're trying to suddenly convince us that this guy is serious and has a chance. The promo was very good, outside of Sami Zayn, he has the best story and best reason to face Gunther coming out of this match, but it's hard to take him seriously after the way he's been booked over the past few months.
Well, I do feel he'll be him and Zayn are going to be the two big contenders in that match next week. And certainly in a kind of gauntlet match, Gable should probably be the guy that starts it.
Sure.
I wouldn't even have Zayn be the one that necessarily has to run the table, but Gable could be that role and still get over and losing by going 40 minutes or something.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stories that you can have coming out of that gauntlet too. So besides that match, it's the Kabuki Warriors against Baszler and Stark for the tag titles next week, and Becky Lynch against Liv Morgan in Houston. Final match is Jey Uso against Drew McIntyre.
Did you skip maybe the most important segment on the show?
Oh, is this? Oh God, the video game segment, right? First of all, Jey Uso is in the back and calls out Drew Mac and hears him cry and complain, says, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for what I'm going to do to you tonight. And you're going to learn that Jey don't play, as he puts on his Yeet shades.
All this dude has, like, he could say whatever he wants. He could, like, I don't know, just
He
diarrhea
could
the
run off
brain.
like the ingredients he puts in his like protein shake. And
Exactly.
it would be like Yeet.
As long as he says yeet, this crowd
Wheat.
will go crazy.
Into the geek room. It's R-Truth with his buddies, DIY, Xavier Woods, and Miz walks in as well. So Miz has gone over all of their plans to get back at Judgment Day. They're all awful ideas, and he suggests that they get their tag titles. Truth refers to San Antonio's own Shawn Michaels when he looks at Johnny Gargano, and then they all put their fist in as Regeneration X. And somehow this was the commercial for 2K24 coming out this Friday.
I mean, they had to mention it somehow.
What an amazing promotion. Like, I was immediately stating I will never buy this game because of this segment out of principle.
Maybe more so than that. I wonder what you were saying about future DIY matches, because God, like, the whole time I'm watching this, I'm looking at Tommaso Ciampa's face, and you just get the sense that this dude hates this. And I just
remember when these two were like just adamant that we just want to stay in NXT.
Yeah,
this was their nightmare. Okay, for all you want to say about like Uncle Paul, like these guys have been. This guy in Johnny Gargano. Okay, he was, forget the return that he had in Toronto. That reaction. This guy was in the Elimination Chamber last year. Like, how far could you fall beyond this? I think from Elimination Chamber to Geek playing the video game segment, like, you can't fall further than this.
It's and the thing is, like, Truth is a big player right now on Raw, at least in terms of just like airtime and crowd support. So like, it's not like it's a bad role, but it's a bad fit, and they have not come up with, I think, a compelling reason why DIY should be attached to R-Truth, nor have they given us like any sort of significant characters for DIY. They are just really R-Truth's lackeys. And in a segment like this,
cooled off Truth as well. It's not like Truth is still where he was like 6 weeks ago.
And in a segment like this, I mean, it just feels so far removed from, I think, what we liked about DIY and certainly Tommaso Ciampa, who I just can't wait to just like attack everybody in this room with this PS5.
Well, you do have to admire DIY realizing that there's strength in numbers to accomplish their task.
Yes.
Jey Uso and Drew McIntyre. So the highlight of this match, it was a pretty, I thought this was a pretty ho-hum affair. It was Drew suplexing Jey on the floor and then walking up to the camera and going, yeet.
Yeah.
So they, I don't know, this match was, I don't know, maybe this was just third hour fatigue. I just, like, they were just move. It was just very bare bones.
It was a safe, basic, I think, pro wrestling match.
Safe, basic.
But I thought the crowd was really responsive for it. You know, they sounded like a sold out crowd tonight, and I think it's because how much they love the characters. So I don't fault them whatsoever for wrestling this style of match if they were able to get this sort of reaction. What do you want? Somebody to climb off a ladder and jump through 2 panes of glass?
Multiples. They had the top Sunday. There's 2 commercial breaks, and then Solo Sikoa jumps the barricade, and we think he's going to get involved. Drew hits a Future Shock DDT, and then Cody runs down and kind of gives away his cover by coming out to his theme music, so Sikoa can anticipate this. They fight into the crowd, and then the Claymore is stopped. Jey hits 3 super kicks, and then a very non-brawn spear to Drew McIntyre. Jey goes to climb to the top, but then he sees Jimmy standing next to the announcer's desk, and he stops. He decides not to climb, and Michael Cole yells, "Damn it, Jimmy cost him the match. What's wrong with you?" It's like, Jimmy, like, he didn't do anything. Jey, like, just froze, and then he turns around into the Claymore, and he is pinned in 16 minutes and 45 seconds.
Okay, what if you're John? What if you're about to do like driver's test? Okay, your first driver's test. All right, and it's a very difficult driver's test. You might not be a great driver. Okay, you are, but I'm saying in this hypothetical, you're not. And then you're trying to parallel park, and suddenly you see your twin brother show up in the rear view mirror. That's gonna throw you off. All right, so in that sense, it would be your twin brother's fault.
Well, if they have a parallel parking contest, I will pick Jimmy over Jey. Jimmy gets a chair and enters the ring when Seth Rollins runs past Drew, and the highlighter comes into the ring, super kicks the chair into Jimmy, and Rollins clears the ring, turns around, and there pops up Drew, who claymores Drew and yells at him for being selfish and to focus on their match.
Seth, but
yeah, Claymore Seth, and screams at him as he holds the belt. And then the crowd starts chanting for CM Punk, and Drew just yells, "This is bigger than CM Punk. It's about the title." And that's how the show ended.
Mm-hmm. I thought the hot crowd really kind of held this last match up and last segment up. It was really nothing special as a match itself, and I think I've kind of come to realize that's sort of what you get out of Jey Uso. But I also don't think this crowd cares at all, because he says yeet and they love yeet. And that's really all that matters.
You got yeet, you can do safe and basic.
Oh, it's amazing how over that line, that word is. Great crowd reactions all night, and they continued here. Not that much interesting in terms of booking, I would say, but I did like how they had Rollins overlooked Drew by running past him, which made Drew even more angry.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this gauntlet match next week. I think that could be really strong stuff. Gunther and Drew are my favorite characters in this company at the moment. They are both just firing on all cylinders. I never dull or get sense anything dull with Gunther on this show.
A lot of put towards this gauntlet for next week, so maybe expect a lot of the TV to be focused on giving us the next challenger for Gunther. Cody and Rollins segment was good, a lot of energy from the crowd.
Tune in Friday.
But yeah, really more of a build to Friday, and get your diarrhea merch ready.
Yes, and the women's locker room in disarray as well.
Yeah. Not the most eventful Raw.
Yeah. All right. Well, if you want to send in any super chats, you're welcome to do so. We have a few pieces of feedback to get to as well.
Let's go to forum.postwrestling.com.
Let's start with Muggin. A few heel versus heel matches made it an interesting watch. Dom having so much heat made Gunther a babyface for one night. I got a kick out of Dominik getting sent to God by those chops. It goes double for Imperium and Judgment Day. It took a while, but the crowd got behind Damian and Finn. The finish to Becky and Nia soured me. It would be stupid if this Mania match gets turned into a four-way. Becky gotta get that monkey off her back sooner instead of later. The Cody Seth promo was strong in that they're not limited when they fire back on Rock and company. The main event intertwined a lot of stories pretty expertly.
Yeah, like I had said earlier, I wondered if Seth and Cody would be able to stay cool and stay relevant facing The Rock from 1998. And I mean, there really was no reason to sort of be concerned, because if anything, they have pointed out how uncool 98 Rock is, which is something that a lot of the segment of the audience is bringing up. I mean, they're basically pointing out how old he is by not knowing how to upload a proper video the first time doing it. And the fact that he's so long-winded, he needs 21 minutes to, speak to this current generation, which can't focus on something for longer than, 128 characters or however long a tweet is. So I thought that no
matter what, you've always got feces in your back pocket, literally and figuratively, to lean back on.
Mm-hmm. I don't think they're turning Becky versus Rhea into any sort of multi-man match. That's your main match at WrestleMania, and this is just you're trying to build other people around it heading up to the show. Let's go to Jay from Colorado, who says, why did Nia Jax take that man's hat, assault him with it, and throw it into the crowd? He was just standing there. She just took one look at him and his hat and said to herself, fuck this guy and his hat.
Oh, I miss that. He threw someone's hat into the crowd.
Yeah. I wonder what the hat said. I mean, I don't know. Maybe she's a snapback fan.
Okay, well. Brian in New Jersey, solid show, some good serious build towards WrestleMania. Kaiser looks like he hurt his leg when he got tossed to the floor toward the end of the tag match, so hoping that he is okay. I can see next week's gauntlet match taking up an hour of TV time. They've done it before with Rollins going the distance without winning. Wanted to add some things from Revolution last night. A friend of mine in North Carolina attended the show. He arrived early to the Greensboro Coliseum, noticed a broken down camper with Trump flags on it from presumably the rally the previous day, killed some time during the day at a baseball game nearby, and thought Revolution was the best wrestling show that he's ever attended, and Ospreay and Takeshita, the best match he has ever seen live.
Yeah, so, several people probably agreeing with.
I would imagine many people that attended that would rank that very high among the wrestling shows that they have ever seen live. It was a spectacular show.
We'll see if it holds up by the end of the year.
Yeah, and what they follow it with, as of now, all they have announced for Wednesday is the Kyle Fletcher Will Ospreay match that even Tony Khan was a little hesitant to confirm on Sunday night based on Will Ospreay's hip. But that's the lone match that they have. But I sensed like a lot of momentum coming out of that show. Like there was a lot of attention. This roster is just loaded. You've got the incoming talents in the next few weeks. Like there was a lot of focus on AEW, and now the key, and I'm curious if you think like, will it help them that now they're peaking for another pay-per-view in like 6 weeks, as opposed to 2.5 months, almost 3 months when you're talking like Memorial Day weekend for Double or Nothing.
Well, I'm expecting a lot for Big Business even before that. That's sort of a mini pay-per-view in itself. And obviously you're going to get whoever's going to debut on Big Business being involved in something big for, what's the show called? Dynasty. You like it? You like the name?
I remember once Tony Khan was doing a radio interview, and one of the hosts was like going over some WWE pay-per-view names. It's like, they've got like the best names. And Tony's like, yeah, but we've got the best pay-per-view names. And he's listening, like, we got Revolution and we got, I'm like, listen, AEW, there are some great things. The names of their pay-per-views do not strike me at all.
Talking about, we got Full Gear.
Yeah. Okay. A joke that is how many years old?
World's End with no apostrophe.
Yeah. We've got All In and we've got All Out. I could care less about names, but
listen, for some of these names, like Tony has held onto these names since he was a child. Okay, like Dynamite. So to him, I'm sure he really likes it.
Okay, well, that is coming up on Wednesday night, and we will be speaking with you then. So tune in Tuesday for Up Next with Braden and Davey. I'm sure they will be sharing more thoughts. They have been documenting their trip up on their Patreon, so all the links you can find at poisonrana.ca.
And I want to give a shout out to John Pollock's audio news updates, which are up for our double and espresso tier patrons over at postwrestlingcafe.com. Upgrade your tier and you get these excellently produced 10-minute approximately audio updates from John. A lot of editing clips and everything gets put into them for a very small select audience. So thank you, John, for putting that up there. Was today's free?
No, today's was for the double espresso.
You got to pay for this one. I'm sorry.
Sorry, freeloaders. Yes, but a bit of a bio on Paul Heyman with the announcement that he's going into the Hall of Fame. So that's up there now if you want to listen to it, or you can read it for free as well. We'll chat with you Wednesday night after Dynamite, and also Pollock and Thurston coming your way on Wednesday, usual time of 3 Eastern. So that is it for us. Way is off to daycare.